So we're on to part 2 of our discussion of population geography in chapter 3. I wanted you to take a look at this map. This was not in your textbooks, but I wanted you to see, since I was referring to doctors' access to healthcare, medicines, and the like for women, children with infant mortality rate, things of that nature. I wanted you to see where the number of doctors matters. And Cuba really stands out here. When Fidel Castro overthrew the Batista regime, the first thing they put on the agenda was healthcare and, food and education for its people. I mean, they really went after that. This is why all the rich people left Cuba and went to live in Miami, because they wanted to take their wealth with them. They weren't ready to distribute it as the communists like to do. And so that's why the number is quite high there. And I want to show you something as well. I've had some dental work done. I didn't have particularly good teeth. I was a sickly child. I had tetracycline staining. If you want to look it up, you can see what it does to the permanent teeth of the adults that have this drug. Saved my life, which was great, but then again, it makes your teeth a dingy looking color. They weren't nice. I went to Mexico on 3 separate occasions for some cosmetic dentistry, and it didn't cost me much. I'm telling you. Okay. I was told by one of the dentists here in Gallatin of a tooth I needed to have replaced that it would cost me $4,000 to have my molar pulled out, the work done on my jaw, an anchor post put in place, and to have a nice brand new tooth on it. And he said, for that $4,000, you'll have half a tooth's worth of biting surface. I'm telling you, I have a nice smile now relative to what I paid. Why did it cost so little going to Mexico to get this done? What one tooth would have cost me here? And the reason is that education is subsidized. Your education is subsidized too. You're listening to me because other people help to pay you along the way. If you're a Tennessee Promise recipient or have any sorts of other financial aid assistance, the government, the people of this country are subsidizing that. They just do it a lot more in other places. And they do it with health care. Obamacare, HCA, the ACA, Affordable Care Act, tried to cover as many people as it could, tried to be socialist in the mindset that, honestly, that European countries are socialist. They don't have to pay very much for education or health care, guys. And so that's why it's so inexpensive. And considering what we have here, where you're maybe one disease away from losing your home, that so many people lost their jobs here. Now they're losing their health care because health care is tied to employment. That in this pandemic, this shows us the holes in our system. And if you know to compare it, and don't just get scared every time you hear maybe, some news station saying, oh, well, Venezuela's got communism, socialism. That's what you're going to get. And overlooking the fact that Norway, Sweden, Denmark, all these countries over here are great countries, and they all have socialist systems that work. So you kind of got to be really cherry picking it to always compare it to Venezuela. It just doesn't work that way. And to think that Cuba got a bad deal out of something from this is not the case either. When you look at their doctors, they export health care, and they're really proud of what they do, and they should be, because health care should be a human right and not something for the richest of the rich. That said, if you feel that's a political statement, I apologize. You do not have to hold my personal viewpoints, okay? You may have your own. In fact, I'd strongly encourage it. Just be able to back up your viewpoints with facts, with evidence, with peer-reviewed studies and the like. I get really tired of everything is, fake news. If it is, that's fine. Just learn how to analyze news and sources. All right, that's a really big deal for me. Anyway, this concept of demographic transition model. The demographic transition model is one that is a model tries to predict in the same way weather forecasters put together. They prognosticate. What do we think is going to happen? We think we're predicting the future. Well, how did they do that? They took all the available data, ran it through supercomputers, it spit out in the models that they used what they thought the forecast would be, and bang, there they have it. And computers are quite powerful today, and I know for a fact that 7-day forecasts this year were more accurate than 3-day forecasts were 5 years ago. Okay? So that said, is this model one that's very predictive? And the answer is, well, depends. It depends on which countries you're looking at what time period. So this model assumes that all countries would go through stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of economic development, and that birth and death rates would react accordingly. This is honestly only necessarily true for the early countries that went through it. I don't think it's very fair, and demographers for sure would say, have questions as to the validity of this, assuming that developing countries of Africa and Asia and Latin America are going to have the same kinds of things happen. That said, it's still a good model to use, at least to try and analyze and understand population. Stage 1. This is pre-industrial. What you have is mostly people farming, hunting, gathering, livestock, things of this nature. Humans are acting as both killer and hunter and hunted, I guess I should say. So if you were to look at this as I saw in my biology classes when I was like in 6th grade, you'd say, oh, well, here's the bunny rabbits and here's the foxes, and there are too many foxes and not enough bunnies, so the foxes starve and get disease and go down, but then the bunnies, bam, they rebound, and it's great. And now there's a lot of resources for these few foxes, and so what's going to happen to those numbers of the foxes? Boom, they're going to go up, and then the hares, rabbits are going to go down. And what you really see here is this line, a stasis of equilibrium. And that is typically what you would see. High birth rates, high death rates, and low population growth rates to no population growth rate. I'll say it again. High birth and death rates means that we've got a pretty static population. It's not going to grow. But then you introduce industrialization. Okay, and I don't mean necessarily the Industrial Revolution, but technology comes to help out. And what does it do? It helps us to have, produce better and more abundant food, cleaner, more abundant water sources, and the like. Medical advances to learn that you just need to wash your hands and you don't, when doing surgery. How many lives is that going to save? So what we see in stage 2 is the beginning of industrialization. And what happens to the death rate? We figure stuff out, and we prolong people's lives. So people that stay alive longer tend to do what? Have more babies. Well, why were they having a lot of babies to start with? Because the babies would, if you had 12 kids, maybe 4 to 6 of them may have died before they reached adulthood. So that said, and also being farmers and whatnot, you're going to need those hands in the field. So the birth rate stays artificially high. You get a second transition area here with stage 3, where finally the birth rates start to drop. And to explain that, I don't have to have 12 kids to have 8 of them survive. Moreover, I find that the fewer kids I have, the more... Hold on just a moment. Ollie, don't bark at him. Don't. It's okay. My dogs don't like things they see outside. Sorry. I'm not willing to pause it, so I apologize. All right. But then you can educate and care for those children much better if there are fewer of them, and people are transitioning away from subsistence agriculture, say, or menial labor, tasks or difficult labor tasks, and moving into jobs of industry or maybe into the white collar sector. Moreover, with death rate here, it eventually is going to plane off. It's everybody dies. Sorry, I don't mean to give away the ghost here. Yes, that's the way it's going to end up. So eventually everybody died. But the point is that by the time you're getting to the end of this thing right here at stage 3, at stage 4, what you've reached is basically the same population growth rate you had in stage 1. Stage 4, though, is different because it's low birth and low death rates. Got it? So where have all these billions of people come from? The countries that inhabit stages 2 and 3 in this model. Okay? And the longer they stay there, the more babies they have. So if I were to draw a line of population associated with this industrial development and this time scale, the population would have been static down this way, and then it would have started growing just like this. And then by the time it gets to stage 4, it's going to get here and start to plane off. And then you got a special stage 5 here where it's actually going to start to drop. So what's happening here is that countries like Germany, Japan, all the really well-developed countries now, parents know, I need 2 kids, that's all. It's going to cost me $500,000 to put one of them through university education. So I can't do that. And I like vacations, again, cars, boats, and fun things to do. I mentioned in the previous discussion that sex was all that poor people really had to have fun with. So we have distracted fun in other ways once we have disposable income. So this is going to be problematic for the likes of Germany and Japan in this area. Where do they get the workers to keep their high-end economies rolling? How do they stay high-end economies? There's only so much robotics and things are going to do. So these are challenges on the horizon for these industrialized countries. Okay. So if we look at annual population increases, as you would guess, African states, the poorer they are, you'd say, well, they're having that many kids. To have that many children die either in infancy or in child, before age 5, they got to be having a lot of kids. And so, yes, they do. But look at the brown countries of Europe and Eastern Europe. You've got Portugal here. You've got Italy and Germany. I'm sorry again about my pointer. Germany and Italy here. You've got these southeastern states like Hungary and Bosnia-Herzegovina, Croatia here, Bulgaria and Serbia, Ukraine, Belarus, the Baltic states here, and Japan. All of these states are declining, but some are declining because they're really rich or are having problems with their economies. And I tell you, a young woman that we hosted as a student when she was a senior in 2001, 2002. Her name is Marta Tisliak. She's been married for a while now. She's in her mid-30s, and they're not going to have any kids in Ukraine. That's just the way it goes. They're able to take care of themselves, but that's enough for them. Okay? So not everything is meant to be fully understood because it would be understood, but you'd have to know the specifics of each of those countries to know where, what's impacting that growth. Okay. So let's wrap up here with this one and show you who Margaret Sanger was. Margaret Sanger was mad at her father. I think it was when her mother died. I think it was in the giving birth to her 18th sibling. And at the funeral, I watched a documentary film. She said, she pointed at her father and blamed him. You did this. You did this to her. You keep putting, infants in her womb, and you killed my mother. So she wanted birth control. With Dr. Pincus and Jairus, I can't pronounce his name, Carl Djerassi. These guys invented a pill that tricked the female system to think that they were always pregnant, essentially is what it was. There are certainly different kinds of birth control methods, but I would argue differently than people would of the time that it will make women sexually promiscuous. That's stupid. People are always wanting to have sex. If you know how to have sex and it feels good, you know why you do it. All right, sex is a proper desire and function of normal human beings. I don't think women should be saddled with a baby if that's not what they want, though. I think they should have a choice. And so I don't want to debate over Roe versus Wade. You can have your opinion about whether aborting babies or extracting cells, however you want to frame your argument. But the point is that I believe it's a person's personal choice, especially the females, about the decision she makes about her body. That said, there are lots of different ways in which people control populations here. I think I'm going to have to stop here and pick up the rest of that discussion in my third video. So I'll be right back. Okay, guys?